Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Earmark. I'm Blake Oliver, and today we are going to talk about how to optimize your CAS team, your client accounting services, client advisory team. And we've got a case study for you, a lesson from an actual reorganization of a team led by Rebecca Mowen. Rebecca is a partner at Hancock Askew and has over 19 years of experience in audit, tax, accounting services, and internal audit. Wow, that is a lot, Becky. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I actually have to ask, how did you, I just realized you have all that experience. How did you get onto all those different teams? Like, that's kind of unusual.
It is unusual. So I started my career in tax and doing CAS write-up work 20-something years ago. And then I made a switch to audit, and I've been loving that. But as the CAS practice has grown for our firm and outsourced accounting has grown tremendously, I had the opportunity to step back into a leadership role with that department. So that's how I kind of winded my way back there.
Wonderful. And we're also joined by Giles Pearson. After 18 years as a private business partner at PwC, he co-founded Accountests after becoming frustrated with a lack of certainty when hiring accountants. Giles, welcome.
Hi, Blake. Nice to be here.
And today we're going to talk about using assessments, getting better certainty about where people belong in their organization, and in particular, how that worked with the reorganization that Hancock Askew did with their CAS team. But before we get into that story, Becky, I'd love to hear from you what exactly CAS means to you.
Yeah, so like you said, CAS stands for Client Accounting Services, and most people also know that as outsourced bookkeeping and accounting. It could run a gamut of recording daily transactions for clients, managing accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll services, sales tax compliance filings, also go into, reconciling bank accounts, credit card, fixed asset loans. So that's the core of when you think of client accounting services. There's also the financial reporting, analysis, and advisory services that we offer for within our CAS practice. We can prepare either monthly, quarterly, or annual reports, provide management tools, cash flow analysis, KPI tracking and monitoring, help a client with a budget and monitoring that budget. If they need help with software selection, possibly we could help them with that. And just growth strategies is more on our advisory side of a CAS practice.
Wow, that's a lot of different things, but not surprising, right? Because CAS kind of seems to encompass like all of the outsourced services that a firm can provide.
Yeah.
Giles, you work with a lot of accounting firms. You have your own experience it was in tax, right, at PwC?
Well, it was interesting. Becky started I think you said you started in tax and went to CAS. I started in audit. No, you started in tax and went to audit. I started in audit and went to tax. So that's right. My experience was mostly as a tax partner, but also as a private business partner. So we were working with mostly family-owned businesses. This is not PwC downtown New York that I was with, so we were a small office of 40 people, 4 partners, so it was a pretty intimate experience.
Got it. So Becky, tell me about the CAS team at Hancock Askew. Like, what's it like? Head count, where are people located? Are you all in the office? Do you work remote, hybrid, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so Hancock Askew as a firm, we're full service. So we have tax audit and a CAS practice and advisory. We have 7 offices, all located in the southeast of the U.S. So we're only in Georgia and Florida. We have about 300 employees total in the firm. That number just keeps growing. But in our CAS practice specifically, we have about 35 employees spread between those 7 offices. We also have a mixture of in-office and remote. We have some teams that work 100% remote, and then we have people who come in the office 2 to 3 days a week, and then others who come in pretty much every day. So we have a mixture.
And when did you join the CAS team?
So I joined the CAS team officially in 2020. January of 2020, before COVID really hit the marketplace and changed everything really in a CAS practice. I feel like when that happened, everything got turned upside down, and we really spent a lot of our times moving from providing monthly accounting to actually keeping businesses open and helping with the PPP loans and then eventually the ERCT.
So was that the impetus for the reorganization that you did? Was those changes, or was it something else?
Yeah, that started our thought process that what we were doing wasn't going to continue into the future. We wasn't sustainable. So I think as a lot of CAS practices across the nation have experienced tremendous growth, it's a field that, the sky is the limit almost on outsourced accounting right now. We are looking at what our teams are doing, and they were doing a little bit of too much of everything. So as a smaller group, it's easy to have all hands on deck and everybody can contribute in a little bit of every way, either client work or administrative tasks. But as we grew, that wasn't sustainable. And when you look at the volume of potential clients, how are we going to be able to serve them the best way possible if we don't create some better definition and roles for our team members? So it really comes down to scalability and talent management, resource management.
So what were some of the challenges you were having with the way the team was set up before?
Just like probably every CAS practice has gone through some journey like this is, we had managers that are obviously leading teams. They're doing performance reviews. They're doing discovery calls with new clients, quoting, onboarding, and sustaining a solid book of client recurring work. And it just created too much confusion as to what was I going to do every day when I walked in the door, and what is the best thing for me to be doing. Is it client work? Is it onboarding new clients, or is it more administrative task or running the practice? So that's the main challenge that we had, along with learning and development. What kind of career path are we creating for our CAS team members, and how can we help them progress in their career to just same way that tax and audit already had that developed.
So basically it sounds like everybody was doing a little bit of everything on the team. Yes. So I can see how that would be difficult. I have to win new business.
Yeah.
And I also have to serve existing business. And just even having to do those two things, which was kind of my life as a manager,
right,
is very challenging. So how did you decide to walk me down your thought path for how to change this up, how to
so
optimize this?
We met as a leadership team and saw the future of what got us to where we were wasn't going to take us the next 10 or even 2 years from now. We weren't going to be able to be successful if we just continued on that same path. So we really thought about what are the risks if we don't do anything, and then how do we mitigate that risk and make that changes that we need to make. So we think about that. It's employee turnover is a risk if we don't make any changes because they're not, happy. And I hate to say people need to be happy though. They're not passionate about what they're doing and they're overwhelmed and burnt out. So if we looked at that risk, okay, how do we change that? Will we make a better environment for our team members where they come and they have specific tasks and more routine in their day and have more support in their daily job? So that was one of the big factors that we considered. And also the client experience. If our team members aren't able to perform at their best use, are our clients having the best experience and a consistent experience? Because it is, every manager was onboarding their own, every partner kind of had their own way of doing things. So it just wasn't creating a consistent client experience.
So how did you create more consistency? How did you get people not doing everything?
Yeah.
How'd you divide up the work, I guess is my question.
So we thought about what are the sticky points with people, and we realized we were lacking operational support. And so then we went through this process, and that's how we found Giles, actually, is we were doing a lot of research. One thing that we did as far as our research was the AICPA CAS benchmark survey, and looking at what are the top performing firms, what are they able to achieve as far as net revenue per professional, their average bill rates, what's the net revenue per client, and where do we align compared to top performers? And we weren't in the same bracket as them. When we looked at everybody who submitted, we were like, okay, we fit there, but we want to be in that top performing group. So let's take a look at the team we have. Let's find out where we are as far as technical skills to move to the next level, and also who should be doing what, the right seat on the bus. And so we found Accountests, and we've been working with Giles for about the last year now, maybe a little over a year, to
I have lost Becky. Giles, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. We're going to give Becky a chance to reconnect, and she'll be back with us, I'm sure. Thanks, everyone, for your patience here. I restarted my browser to make sure that I wasn't the one who lost the connection. But I think Becky was on to how they started the reorganization or how they approached assessing the different skills that folks had. And so I think this is a good time to discuss the assessments that you have developed at Accountests, Giles. So let's talk about that. How can firms like Becky's, when she contacted you and got in touch with you, like how did you help Hancock Askew figure out what everyone's skills are?
And I think it's worth. Why did we even get here? And because that's really part of the story. So, my frustration in 18 years as a partner with PwC was, I guess, consistently enough hiring people who didn't turn out the way that I expected, and that was a real pet frustration for me. And we went out looking for skills tests to test people as they were coming on. And couldn't find anything that we thought was of the quality that, I would want to put in front of a candidate. So that was a project of mine, I guess, when I finished at PwC, was to develop a series of assessments that, starting with skills, a series of assessments that firms could use, based on the job description. So assessments that were targeted to different roles that firms were hiring for. And that you could then go into the interview already knowing where people were at. Was this person in my ballpark from a technical perspective? And you don't waste a whole lot of interview time trying to work out whether somebody's, got the technical knowledge and whether their resume actually lines up with, what their actual knowledge is. And there's lots of stories about that, of course.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that seems to me to be the biggest frustration with hiring is you see somebody has this skill on the resume, they have the background, but then when you hire them, it turns out that they're not really qualified to do the work, or they don't have the knowledge, or worse, it's not really something that they enjoy doing.
Well, that's right. Look, and the reality today is, if you put up an ad on a job board or through a recruiter or whatever, first thing that the candidates are going to do is put that ad into ChatGPT or one of the other AIs, and they're going to ask that to rewrite their resume to fit the job ad. And so, and potentially you're then going to review that resume using your own AI, and you've got this sort of like a battle of the AIs as to, who's smarter. So, how much can you rely on the resume that you're actually looking at to tell you what somebody's experience is? And it's, and that's a challenge. And you waste potentially a whole lot of time at interview trying to dig into that, when in today's environment, you need to be spending that interview, as you said, trying to understand where that person's passion is, get them to come and work for you. What is it that you're going to do for me is where the candidate's sitting, not what am I going to do for you? So, or there's certainly a much bigger balance, and it used to be, and I'm sure you'd have done this, and we did this, is you spend 55 minutes of your 1 hour interview challenging the candidate and trying to find out whether they're going to fit with you, and then in the last 5 minutes it's have you got any questions for us, and it's like, well, it just doesn't work anymore, because candidates want to be sold to, and they want to know that this is going to be a place that they're going to want to work, and what's the environment, and what are the sorts of work they're going to be doing, and really, number one, how are you going to develop my career? So money's good, career development is better, and what are you going to do that? And I think segueing back to Becky, that is a lot of what they were trying to achieve, but they needed somewhere to start. So obviously, when you're hiring somebody, you don't know them at all. So the information you get is from a blank piece of paper, whereas where she was coming from is much more, these are people we're already working with, but if we're going to do a reorg, we need to know where our benchmark is and where to start. And that was, partly in skills, but partly in personality, which is the other part of what we do.
Yeah. How did you two get connected in the first place?
It was one of the partners at Becky's firm found out about us through one of the roundtables I think that they're involved in. So, obviously we're expanding our reach in the US, and people are talking a lot about assessing skills. It's I wouldn't say it's the number one problem, but it's right up there. And if you go to any of the conferences, and particularly in CAS, people are always talking about skills and the difficulty of trying to find the people with the right skills. So, people were talking about us, and we were lucky that the dots were joined, and Becky reached out. And
it looks like we've got Becky back. Hi, Becky.
Hi, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
No worries. We just had Giles fill us in on the concept of these skills assessments and the necessity of them. Yeah. And I think we all agree that skills tests are important, because you can't just go off what somebody says and what is on their resume, right? I mean, you can, but you're taking a pretty big risk if you do that.
Well, we have in the past, and that's what got us to moving towards doing assessments, is because you want more data.
So let's pick up where we left off, which was you decide to do a reorg, You need to break up the job duties. Not everybody can do everything.
Right.
You got buy-in from the partners
Mm-hmm.
to do this, and you connected with Giles and Accountests.
Yes.
So let's go from there.
Okay.
How did you roll out these skills tests to the team?
Yeah, that's a great question. We thought a lot about how to present this concept to the team. It's a little unnerving probably for the team members to think I've already had this job and some people have worked for us for over 10 years, and then we're going to ask them to take an assessment test. So Giles actually was a great resource of helping us with how we should deliver this messaging to our team, but it was really just talking about the why and the good things that are going to come from taking a test, which is going to create more consistency in their job, a better work environment for them. We're going to be able to help them with their own career path, and it will help them assess, I think I'm here on the scale of what I know and where I'm going in my future, but this might be, you might already be more advanced than you suspected, and maybe gives them a confidence, maybe it gives them some tools that they need to say, oh, I need to refresh some skills related to these certain topics. So it was really about preparing our team members for them to be successful. And that's how we talked to them. It was a lot of communication. We had weekly meetings with our team members to talk about the process. And once we decided that we were going to go through this transformation and reorganization, we broke it up into 4 phases. And phase 1 was the assessment. So talking through them on that and letting them ask questions to us and us answering them as honestly as we possibly could was a big key for us to be transparent with our team members as well.
And how did the process go of administering the tests? Was it quick? Did it take a while? Like, did you do it in stages?
We did it in stages. So we actually did 2 tests from Accountests. One is the bookkeeping assessment test, and one is the accounting personality profile assessment. So we did those back to back, but because we do have 7 offices and we have people that also work remote, we wanted the experience to be as consistent as possible for our team members. So we gave them a few options of times when they could take the test. And Giles' team emailed out everybody's link, and we all got on a Teams call and muted, but said, okay, start now. And that way we knew everybody was doing it together in those few consecutive times that we had. And if they had some technology issues, which happen, we were able to address them pretty immediately. So that's how we rolled it out with the team.
And then the results, how quickly did you get those results?
Very quick. Giles' team did a great job because we were doing our whole team. So there was like 30 people taking this within like a week period. His team put together a full spreadsheet for us with all of the results by person and helped us organize it in a way that we could then see patterns and analyze the test results that we got back. And then we could have individual conversations one-on-one with every single team member about what their results were, and let them have a chance to have a conversation with us about what that meant to them as well.
I want to hear about those conversations because I imagine that could be a little bit stressful for the staff to get these results and to talk about them. But before we do that, Giles, could you tell us more about what's in these results? Like what do people who take the skills test learn? Or let's start with that, and then we'll talk about the personality tests.
So the skills tests, and it is all about the data, as Becky said. So I guess what we're trying to help people with, say with the bookkeeper assessment that Becky's team did, is to give people, so there's 40 questions, they get 40 data points. And depending on the way the science is built up behind each of the tests, so the bookkeeper test is like a competency-based test. And so there's questions at different levels, starting at like a processor level and then going up to a full charge bookkeeper and then going up to like a senior full charge bookkeeper, sort of verging towards a controller level. And you get to see, based on a variety of questions, you get to see where does your candidate fit on that continuum, if you like. And we developed that using an expert group of bookkeepers who helped us assess the levels of the questions and these sorts of things. So that's the science, if you like, behind how, as an employer, you can work out whether somebody is at the level that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. We liked it a lot because it, as Giles was saying, it has processing and journal entries as one, part of the test, accounting concepts. So we find so many times today we all use technology to do the accounting, and they know how to enter something to QuickBooks, but they understand the why behind what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So in business support, what kind of business support is needed, and how can we help advise our clients in that way? And then finally, there was like tax-related issues and payroll issues. So we outsource most of our payroll and like sales tax compliance. So you got to have a different level of knowledge. I don't need someone to know how to fill out the form. I just need to know how to respond or what should be happening, right? So it helps us gauge where somebody is on that scale possibly.
And did you also do the personality assessments at this time as well, Becky?
We did.
Okay, so Giles, what is in those personality assessments? Like how does that work? What would I learn taking one of these?
So these are a Big Five model personality profile. So these are those are the ones with the good science, if you like. And what we did was we were interested to see or to get something that was more particular to accounting. And if you've taken one of these Big Five personality profiles, it's 100+ questions you ask for people's immediate responses to various statements. But the ones that are out in the market are relatively generalist. So you could be using them on an accountant one day and maybe on a salesperson another day and on an IT person the next day. So we wanted something that sort of focused in on the things that were important in accounting. And again, when you look at the studies that have been done, there are 4 particular areas that accountants find the most important, and that's ethics, relationships, thinking skills, and coping skills, so like stress tolerance. Mm-hmm. So we designed a profile that fitted around those particular areas, so concentrated the questions on that, and then benchmarked that with 300+ CPA level candidates, so that when you look at that, you can go, well, how does this person fit, say, in conscientiousness? How does this person fit with other accountants? And we then built up the interview questions that you might want to ask based on the profile, and some personal development tasks. So the sorts of things you're gonna find out, where does my candidate look compared to other accountants, and at the same time we've done some model profiles based on different roles in accounting firms. So if you're looking to hire somebody who you say want to take through to be a firm owner, you're looking for a profile that's quite different for somebody who you just want to, sit in their chair and grind out a set of management reports, every day, and that's what they want to do, and that's what you want them to do. That's a different profile. So we created some models, if you like, using this. It's called a finder, minder, grinder concept, if you like. So finders being those people who find the work, minders being your client accounting managers, who manage the work and manage the team, and then your grinders being the people who are in the weeds getting the work done for you. So as an employer, what you get to see is I guess those couple of things, and at an interview scenario, and this is slightly different to where Becky was, but at an interview scenario, you can focus on the things that are looking like they're going to be the biggest pain points for you. So if you've got a profile that says this person has real issues with say, warmth and affiliation, social boldness, so they're not somebody who's going to deal with challenge, you can focus your questions at interview on that. Other areas, where they might actually be about the same as other accountants, it's like, well, maybe we don't need to do that. So again, you've got precious interview time. Don't waste it asking questions on things that are looking like, they're telling you that their preferred work style is going to be appropriate for you. So why do you need to waste a whole lot of time at interview, focusing on that? What Becky's team did, I guess, was a little different, because they were then looking at this at a team level as well. But, I'll let Becky talk you through how she did that, because it was great.
Yeah, I'm curious, Becky, were there any surprising results?
Yeah, I would say so. A few people that we've worked with for a number of years who are in a position that, we are like, oh, I think you would actually be better at, instead of grinding, being a doer, be a minder, and we were talking earlier about what positions or how we reorged. So we really looked at our team and said, these are the people that should be producing the accounting records and doing the actual accounting. And then we should have a team of people who is minding and doing the operations of the practice. And then within the operations, we created an account executive role, which is more of the finders. So they're the ones who are onboarding now and handling that for us. The operations team, like the operations manager, is making sure the workflows are being monitored appropriately, that things are getting out timely, and then we have the people who are actually doing the work.
So you got 3 teams.
Yes.
Account executives going out, finding new clients, getting new business, onboarding them. Operations team, you said. And what is the operations team doing?
So the operations team is responsible for making sure that everybody's moving in the right direction, that we don't have some clients that are falling behind, or if they're falling behind, what are we doing to reach out to them? Are the appropriate people internally in our organization being notified of that? They also help with quality control. So we have a quality control process that we, randomly select clients' files, and somebody takes a look at them and makes sure that we're doing all the right things on a monthly basis. So they help with that piece of it. And then the production team is obviously the ones who are interacting with the clients and getting the work done.
Got it. So account executives / sales, operations, and production.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. And so we left off in the story with how you had gotten these results.
Yes.
And you had not yet shared them with the team. How did you share them with the team?
Yeah, so we told the team too, I want to talk about this a little bit, is like what we would do with these results, because that's a very scary feeling for the team members. And we told them, we have to share them with HR, because anything that we do on like this gets shared with our HR team. But it was only going to be shared with leadership. We weren't going to share individual results with other team members. So we met one-on-one with each team member and went through their results and looked at their profile and asked them, does this make sense to you? Do you think this identifies who you are? And the interesting thing, you asked me if there was any surprises, and some people were like, I had no idea that maybe I was adverse, or that I not enjoy conflict, but maybe I'm too harsh in situations where I need to soften my approach with clients. And so it revealed some blind spots for people that I think has been really valuable for us to work together as a team, that they can then share with their team members, or, change their approach as they work with clients.
So when did you formally create these teams? Did you do that right away? Was that like a gradual process?
It was a gradual process. So we mentioned we had 4 phases. The assessment was phase 1. Actually creating the new teams was like our phase 3. So it was a couple months down the road. We did the assessments last July, and then people didn't actually take effect in their new positions until January, like 1/1. So they had a fourth quarter to kind of, we had to shift some work around. We had to do some training, things of that nature. So we used fourth quarter to do and get ready for the new year. So January is when they officially took all their new roles.
Got it. So let's see. As we record this, you've had a little over half a year now
Yes,
to see the results. How's it going?
it's going great. There's always, anytime you make a change, you have to continuously monitor that and then be able to adapt and adjust. So that's always ongoing. And that's part of what my operations team is able to do, which is lovely. I have people who are dedicated to monitoring efficiencies and processes. Um, but there's so many wins from doing this reorganization that we've seen in our CAS team. For instance, having our account executives, typically sales or client prospecting, all of that stops during Q1 in a CPA firm because everybody is too busy doing year-end work and getting ready for tax season. And, so nobody has time to onboard a new client. But our account executives have been able to keep that process going and keep our pipeline flowing. So we had some pretty aggressive growth goals that we've been able to maintain and keep up with through that process. Um, so that's one big win. And then having people have less responsibilities or just knowing more consistently, I'm a senior accountant and this is my job versus saying, I also have to now, you know, test out a new software. And we might pull some people into that, something like that, because they'll be the ones using it. But knowing that my main job is serving this client has really created um, a cohesiveness within the team that they know that they have other people to support them. If they need client statements downloaded, we have people on the operations side who can go help them with that versus them spending their time organizing documents, things of that nature. So it's been a big win,
Yeah, it makes so much sense when
right?
you and I love how simple it is. 3 teams, very defined roles,
Mhm.
and that way you're not spending all your time trying to learn how to do something that you are not an expert in. Your team can specialize.
Right.
And especially I think it bears worth repeating that there's a humongous benefit, an enormous benefit to having an onboarding team that is not overwhelmed in busy season, that can continue to take on clients. Because I imagine you're picking up clients that other firms can't take on until May.
Correct.
And
And that used to be our response in prior years was, a tax partner would come to us and say, I have a tax client, they really need your help. They have this big issue or, and we're like, sorry, it's not going to happen until, at least May 1st, maybe, right? And we have the ability now to have a system in place. And with taking a lot of the administrative task off of our team members, our managers are able to push down some of their work to some of our seniors, and they have more time to spend working with the onboarding team to develop that plan and get clients served faster.
so I want to talk about, in your experience, the differences between the different teams personality wise. I
Hmm.
know Giles identified the sort of scientific way that the tests work, but I'm thinking I'd like to hear it from you,
Hmm.
Becky. Like, just describe for me the difference between somebody who is like good for an account executive role
Hmm.
versus an operational role versus a production role.
Right. So for an account executive role, we're definitely looking for that personality that's more extroverted because they're going to be talking to a lot of new people, and um, you can't be afraid of no, and you have to be able to have that conversation and and just flow with whatever comes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we, and when you're talking to prospect clients, a lot of times clients think they know what they need. They'll just say, I only need you to do my bank reconciliations. Like everything else is fine. And then they have that innate skill of taking a look at it and saying, no, we actually think we need to do these things and having that conversation and being comfortable with that
Yeah,
versus,
you've got to be critical, right? You
yes,
have to not take everything at face value for sure.
correct. Yeah. So some of that curiosity and critical thinking and asking a lot of questions. You keep asking questions until we
Mm-hmm.
get down to the root of what's really going on versus maybe, we talk about the grinder, somebody who is in production is taking that information that we've already discovered and then fixing it, or starting with like just the coding and more analytical almost, to different analytical skills, but then they might be a little bit more introverted where they want to sit at a desk all day long and just stay in front of the computer and have phone calls with clients after they've been introduced to them and we have a relationship with them.
Well, that's good too, because some of those problems are really gnarly, and
Yeah.
you need to hyper focus to figure out how to undo a giant mess
Yes.
that has been brought to you. So you can't be distracted by phone calls. You'll never get it figured out.
Exactly. And you have to be able to have the attention span to do that and for long periods of time, versus someone who is on a different profile is going to be faster paced with their thought process. They need to move on to another task pretty quickly and maybe not the attention to detail that the grinder would have.
Yeah, that's definitely my situation, where I like to rapidly switch around between many different things throughout the day. I probably would be a better fit for an account executive role versus a production role.
Yes. And I noticed that I love change, and the team always gives me a hard time because I'm always like, oh, I have something new. I have a new idea. And they're like, no, please no more new ideas. And it is that fast paced, thought process there where you don't want me to sit down and have to do some of the work that our seniors are doing.
Well, and that's a great quality for that operational role, where you are looking for ways to streamline everybody else's work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our operations team, I did look for a mixture of that, a little bit of the grinder, because I need them to be detail oriented and focused on, this is the task at hand and making sure those things get done and completed timely. But also, that minder is looking at the timing of things. But then you said operationally, what's next? Be future looking, and what new software is out there? What next thing do we need to do to create efficiency, or what problems do we need to start solving right now so that we avoid them 6 months from now?
Thinking ahead.
Yes.
Being proactive and not reactive.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about that in the profession, but we don't often do it. And I love that you have a team that is responsible for that.
I love that too.
So, how about the team happiness? How are your people feeling about these defined roles and teams? Like, how's that? It's only been 6 months or so, but you must have some idea.
Yeah, for sure. The team really has settled into it nicely. I think at first there was a lot of trepidation around what does this really mean, or am I really believing that it's going to be as good as it sounds? So, but the team members who really have leaned into it and then rely on our operations team and rely on the account executives to do those roles now have found great relief, is the word I would use. Okay, I have somebody that I can go to that's going to do that and do it well, and that's their whole job. And even outside of our CAS department, we get a lot of leads for CAS clients from our tax department, and the tax partners or managers who bring those to us, knowing there's dedicated people who are going to handle that and treat their client well and provide a great client experience, is a big relief and comfort.
Yeah, this is a great model to follow, organizing the team in this way. I would encourage all of our listeners to consider it, even just choosing 2 of those teams and like separating people in that way, right? Production and onboarding. I didn't have in my firm, I ran a small firm, and I didn't divide it into 3 teams, but I did have 2. And even that alone was a huge improvement, not having the onboarding being done by the people responsible for the day-to-day work.
Right.
But I would, if I could go back, I would definitely have that operational team as well as a layer on top of everything. Optimizing. I guess that was me. I was the tech guy, right?
You were it.
Yeah, I was the operational team, but I didn't really think about it that way. And I like the way you have identified that as a specific role. And it's not a partner role, right? It's a role that anyone can have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's probably better for not a partner to have some of that, to have, they're a little bit more in touch with some of the day-to-day needs of the team that I think helps them identify those problems. Like I have a person on their team who she talks, that's her job, is to go meet with people and find out what's happening and where the gaps in service or within the team. And then how do we, like you said, proactively think about how to solve that.
Are you using these tests with new hires now?
We do. We have used the bookkeeping assessment test, and we haven't layered in the accounting personality profile yet. So we started with the bookkeeping assessment test back in January, and we do it for all of our new hires. It's part of our recruiting process, which we revamped during our reorganization as well. So our internal recruiting team does initial screening of all of our applicants, and then they'll send them the assessment test. And we keep a scorecard for every new hire or every interview we go through. And the assessment testing is only a portion of our score. So we always are looking for different attributes. Some of it you find on the resume, which is their education, their, length of experience in industries that they've worked in. But a lot of it we get during the interview process with communication skills, some of that soft skill stuff. And then we combine the soft skill and the education and all of that with the bookkeeping assessment to come up with a score for a candidate.
And I imagine that is really helpful when you are then comparing the candidates, deciding who to hire, makes it a lot more objective. Well,
It
a little
does.
more objective, at least.
Yeah, we understand that testing, as much as we enjoy it as accountants, I love a good set of data to go through, but I know that not everybody tests exactly the same way. We understand that that's not the ultimate goal for the assessment test, is not to make that decision on a candidate, but it does give us a basis for part of our interview as well to understand, okay, based on their experience, this is what our expectation would be. Is this aligning with how they did? If it doesn't, let's have a conversation about where they landed. Yeah.
So Giles, building off of that, using assessments in the hiring process, I know that is where most Accountests tests are used, is in the hiring process. So you've worked with quite a few firms now, hundreds on this. Do you have any advice for firms like Becky's that are interested in using assessments, whether skills assessments or personality assessments, or both, in the hiring process?
I think, and look, we're working with 700 or 800 firms now, so it is, we do talk to firms all the time, and we see a variety of different ways that people use them. But the best way, and is similar to what Becky's talking about, is using the tests before a first interview, and the benefit of that is that for one thing, if this person is not even in my ballpark, not even close to being in my ballpark, you've just saved a few $100s of recruiting and manager time, not even interviewing that person, because you were never going to hire them, But the other part of it is being able to go into that first interview with all of that data. So, as I was saying before, with the skills, you can go in, but they're in my ballpark or not. I don't need to challenge, their skill knowledge particularly. From a personality point of view, if you do the personality assessment, you can dive into the issues that are looking to be the ones that are you're gonna want to think about more. Focus your interview questions on those, and I think the real benefit is that you can then spend that time of the interview understanding what motivates the candidate, what is it that they're wanting to do, how are you going to sell your firm to them, and what you can achieve. And you can you need to have that discussion with them so you can spend that time. And if you're seeing somebody who is really spot on with what you're looking for, my encouragement would be make an offer straight away. You don't need to wait for that second interview, because these candidates are if they're a really good candidate and you've just discovered a really good candidate, they're going to get multiple offers. And if you can get in there quickly, you've got the best chance of being able to secure that person. So it does enable you to move fast. But I guess the other part is if you've done that competency-based interview sort of process in that first interview, the second interview, maybe when you're going to bring the firm owner in and maybe some more of the accounting people, is less of a competency-based interview, more of a conversation, and that's where you can then, maybe introduce them to some of the team and these sorts of things. And the accounting team members are often not trained in interviewing, so asking them to run a competency-based interview is pretty tough. How many of us got training in college about how to interview someone? It just doesn't happen. I went through my whole career with no training, and I'm not sure that I got a lot better, to be honest. So leave the competency-based interviewing to the hiring people who really know that, and then you've got that information then for that second interview. If you do the second interview, it's a different level of interview. So I think you can use that objective data to really streamline that process and hire people who you understand, and they might not be the perfect person, because who can find the perfect person these days? It's tough. But if you understand them, when they start with you on day one, you don't end up with that sort of dragging feeling as the firm owner or the manager. It's like, what have we done? This is not what I expected. And how many of us went into accounting to deal with underperforming staff, having to performance management people, potentially exit them from the business. This is not what we went into accounting for. And if we can help take some of that away by making sure that everybody knows where people are at and how to make this a positive experience, for me, that was one of the real big things that I wanted to try and help firms with, because I think it's I certainly, that was the part of my role that I probably disliked the most.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on what Giles was saying. It's so true, because when we go through our interview process, we can talk more about culture of our firm and what their expectations are and what their career aspirations are, more than the technical side, because we already have a good understanding of where they're at technically.
That's a great point. You're saving a lot of time in the interview process. You can talk about what really matters beyond just technical skills.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of times we can do one interview and decide to, move forward and not have to drag that on, because it is a very competitive market for great talent. And we don't want to linger and take too long to make decisions.
And, I've had that experience applying for roles where the company doesn't move quickly enough, and I took another opportunity. And you don't want to lose out on good candidates because of that. We've got a few minutes left. We have a few dozen people who have joined us live. Welcome to our live stream listeners, viewers. If you have any questions for Becky or Giles, please put them in the comments. Here is one for Becky.
Okay.
How did you, well, first of all, did you get any resistance from the team, especially with the skills assessments? People might be nervous to take one if they've been employed for years already. I think that in the CPA world, we like to joke that it means can't pass again, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because if somebody asked me to take the exam again, I don't know what I would do, right? Yeah. So I'd be a little nervous.
Same.
And I'd probably be similarly nervous about even a bookkeeping assessment. Even though I cut my teeth bookkeeping, it's been a while. Yeah. How did you get any resistance, and how did you overcome it?
So yeah, we had people who had questions. I wouldn't say resistance. I feel like we have a great relationship with our team members. Even though we're spread across 7 offices, we do try to communicate in person as much as possible. In person, meaning like over Zoom or Teams or something. So we have great relationships with our team members. But one of the things that we did as leadership is we all took the assessment before we even decided this was the path that we were going to go forward with. Because I wanted to be able to tell our team that we've done this too. And I did share my results with my team to say, I didn't score 100, So, and it's okay. It's not a pass fail. It's where you are in the continuum of that journey of learning, right? So having that conversation and being vulnerable with my team members and our other people in leadership that participated really helped give them confidence that we were doing this for the right reasons and that they were safe. Talk about workplace safety in that way. And we talked a lot about what we would not do, and it wouldn't be a demotion or decrease in pay or any sort of judgment about how you're performing. This doesn't factor into your performance review. Your current work factors into your performance review. This is just a baseline for us to start with some assessment.
Giles, how do your tests at Accountests differ from other options on the market, other tools available?
To be honest, Blake, we haven't really seen anything that is that similar to what we do. We're just laser focused on the accounting profession, and no one else has really done that. We have seen firms who have built their own internal testing, and some of it is amazing, with case studies that they've developed or particular ways they're looking to assess. But it's more challenging now, both with the fact that almost all these assessments are done remotely, and AI and all these other things. So we proctor all our tests with an AI proctoring process, and that's if you're a firm trying to do this on your own, that's all quite challenging when you're trying to get people to do assessments that you've built yourself. So yeah, at the moment, I think, in terms of that sort of online, you use whatever assessment fits with your job description. We don't see a lot of other options out there that people can use, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to just say, piggyback on what you were saying, Giles, is we tried to do this ourselves, to be honest with you. And yeah, it's very challenging. And from a legal and an HR standpoint too, of consistency across applicants, are we consistently applying the same exact testing, or is it just dependent on who was the one leading or administering? So it takes out some of that maybe possible bias, or it just protects the firm and creates a consistent process that we're able to rely on. So,
well, we're coming up at the top of the hour, but we got one question in here from Shayna that I want to answer before we go. So we'll make this the last one. Shayna says, I may have missed this, but how did you make sure the assessment was as close to real life examples as possible? So, Giles, you want to grab that one?
So, look, I guess the start point for all of our tests is based on the fact that I spent 25 years in practice. I know the sorts of questions that clients get on the phone and ask you questions. The team members come and ask you questions. The team members are asking each other questions. What are those questions? What are the things you expect your team to just know, rather than, for example, not questions that the software is going to answer for you, or not questions that if they were issues that I would have looked up, then why would I? You don't expect people to know those things. So we're always focused on those practical things that clients just ask, and our expert groups that we use to develop the tests are all people who are in practice. They're CPA partners doing tax, they're bookkeepers in CAS, whichever, audit managers. So again, they're all people who are in there doing it as part of their day job. And that's one of the challenges, is to have questions that are short but practical, because you want to ask a lot of questions to get those data points, but you need them to be focused. So that's how we've tried to do it.
And I think the important thing to know about Accountests is that Giles develops these tests and he has 20 years of experience and knows exactly what kind of questions you need to ask. And so it's not just generic accounting questions that have been tossed in there by someone who's not an accountant. It's been vetted by accountants in practice. And that's what makes it relevant. So with that, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, Becky, I'd like to wrap things up.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Becky Mowen and Giles Pearson for joining me today. We will make your CPE course available on the Earmark app within the next week, and everyone who attended live will get an email letting them know how to do that with a link to the course. I'm going to play a quick outro video, and then I'll see you all on the other side. Bye, Giles. Bye, Becky. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Today's event has ended. To earn CPE, go to earmark.app or scan the QR code on the screen. Then log in or create your free account. Search for the course by tapping on the magnifying glass icon on the home screen and then entering the name of this event. It takes a few days to make the course, so if you're attending this event live, keep an eye out for an email letting you know when the course is available. Pass the quiz to earn your CPE, then tap the button to email yourself a certificate. Stay tuned for more events from Earmark. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.